Welcome to the Disneyland with Kids podcast, where we help you plan your Disneyland vacation in 30 minutes or less. Want to make sure you don't miss an episode? Hit subscribe now. All right, on this episode of Disneyland with Kids, we are going to break down the differences between Magic Morning and Extra Magic Hour. I'm Becca from This Crazy Adventure Called Life.
And I'm Jessica from The Happiest Blog on Earth.
So one thing that a lot of people get confused about is the difference between Magic Morning and Extra Magic Hour. We're going to break down these two different perks available to Disneyland Resort guests so that you know which one you have, and we're also going to talk about the best strategy to utilize these perks. Let's get down to it. What is Magic Morning and who gets that?
Magic Morning is access to Disneyland Park an hour before the general public can get into Disneyland Park. And that is available to anyone that has a 3-day or longer ticket, except military discount tickets, because those discounts are so fantastic. But if you have bought your tickets in advance from our ticket partner or even from Disney, you will get access to Magic Morning with a 3-day or longer park ticket.
That is available to all resort guests, no matter where you're staying, whether you're local, except for annual pass holders and those using the military salute tickets. Now, what is Extra Magic Hour?
Extra Magic Hour is for Disneyland Resort hotel guests. So if you're staying at the Grand Californian, Disneyland Hotel, or Paradise Pier, you get Extra Magic Hour. Sometimes that overlaps with Magic Morning, hence part of the confusion.
So Magic Morning, we already said, was in Disneyland. Where is Extra Magic Hour? Is that, we said it overlaps, so it overlaps in Disneyland, but what about the days that it isn't at Disneyland?
Right. Well, you brought up a key point, is that Magic Morning is on certain days, and we'll get into that as well. But back to Extra Magic Hour. On certain days, it's hosted at California Adventure Park, and on the other days, it's hosted at Disneyland Park. It's hosted the same days at Disneyland Park as Magic Morning. So people at Disneyland an hour before the park opens to the public might be one of two people. They might be people with Magic Morning access, staying anywhere, even staying at their own house if they're local and they have that ticket that includes Magic Morning, or staying at one of the 3 Disneyland resort properties. Over at California Adventure, you are only going to see people who are staying at one of those 3 Disney properties.
Exactly. So we kind of hinted at this, but Magic Morning, how many times can you get in early with Magic Morning when you have that 3-day ticket? You mentioned that it's certain days of the week. And so those days are Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Does that mean you can go that hour early all 3 of those days with your one ticket?
That's a common question. And a lot of times people think that they can use it on all of those days. Like if they have a 3-day ticket, then they want to go on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and they think they're going to get into Disneyland twice during Magic Morning, but you can actually only use it once. And Magic Morning isn't anything extra that you need to show. It's actually already loaded onto your park ticket. So when you scan in the gates at any time during Magic Morning, even if you show up a little late for Magic Morning, it's going to automatically deduct your one Magic Morning off of your ticket.
Exactly. So definitely be careful when you go that if you're just there early for regular park opening, they have signs up above each gate telling you what they're admitting entrance for. And so if that sign above the gate you're in line for says Magic Morning, be careful because it will take your Magic Morning off of your ticket and then you will not have another one to use. So Jessica, if Magic Morning only gets to go in one day, what about Extra Magic Hour? Are they also limited to one day so that they're going to have to choose what day to utilize it?
Well, this is really one of those huge perks about staying on property at the Disneyland Resort. You can use Extra Magic Hour every day during your stay as long as you have valid theme park admission. So you can go to California Adventure a couple days, Disneyland a couple of days, just depending on which days your visit falls on. and that operating schedule, you just need your park ticket and a valid room key. Those room keys actually have dates on them for when you're staying, so you have to use them during your visit. Another cool thing is you can use extra magic hour on the day you check in and the day you check out. In order to get there for extra magic hour on the day of your check-in, you have to be prepared to get there super early. A lot of people don't do this on the day they check in, but it is possible. Disneyland hotels will hold your luggage, and then you can head over to the parks. It's a lot easier on the day you check out. Again, they'll hold your luggage and you can still utilize that extra magic hour.
Yeah, and I mean, really, if you are only going for extra magic hour, you could even go to extra magic hour and then go back and pack if you don't want to have to be rushed in the morning and then check out and have them hold your luggage and go back to the parks if you have time. So what days is extra magic hour in California Adventure?
At Disney California Adventure, you have access to extra magic hour Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. So that's an extra day even, because at Disneyland, it is Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Correct. And Magic Morning is also that Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Like Jessica mentioned, those two overlap when it's at Disneyland. All right. So we know you get in an hour early now for these two special perks, but a lot of people wonder, oh, if I go to Magic Morning at Disneyland, can I go to Galaxy's Edge before everyone else gets there? What is open during Magic Morning at Disneyland, or Extra Magic Hour at Disneyland, since they're the same thing basically?
Right. So at Disneyland, right now we know for sure it's Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, and it's been that way for quite some time. So that's pretty standard. You can get in a ton of attractions during that hour, and I think it's great because we have Fantasyland for the ones that have younger kids and Tomorrowland for those of us looking for bigger thrill rides. So it really gives you something for anyone in your group, even if you have a group of mixed ages of teens and then little kids, things like that. It really gives you a lot to do in that first hour.
Yeah, it does. And there's one of the things is Fantasyland, those rides are very compact, and we'll get into strategies in a minute. So even though it's only two lands that are open, there is a lot to do in those two lands. What about California Adventure for the extra magic hour, the people that get to utilize that? What is open over there?
Open at California Adventure is generally all the e-ticket rides. And I say e-ticket as a nod to the ticket books that they used to have at Disneyland. They labeled them with the letters, and the ticket labeled E was the biggest, most exciting, most popular attractions. So over at California Adventure, we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, Incredicoaster, Soarin', just to name a few. But it turns out they do open quite a few other attractions as well, like Toy Story Midway Mania that the whole family can ride. And sometimes they'll open some of the other smaller attractions like in Cars Land and, of course, Radiator Springs Racers.
Yeah, so when we have gone for Extra Magic Hour at California Adventure, we have found that almost every single ride is open except for a few in Paradise Garden area, like the Golden Zephyr hasn't been open, maybe the swings, but we've always found Ariel's Undersea Adventure. So if you have little kids that maybe aren't into the e-ticket rides yet, don't worry, there's still plenty for them to do during Extra Magic Hour. And one thing that I thought was great about Extra Magic Hour over at California Adventure is because it's only for the hotel guests there, it's less crowded, things are more spread out as well. So I could let my twin preschoolers walk and kind of run and be a little free from the stroller and explore a little, which is a great perk for that as well.
I love that idea, letting them get to roam a little bit. It's also a great time, especially at California Adventure, to get some family photos taken. There's lots of great places to take pictures there.
Exactly. It's not often you can get pictures without a large crowd in the background at some of these places, like in front of the Pixar Pier sign or, in front of some areas in Cars Land. You're going to have people behind you unless there's a specific backdrop. And so this is a great time to get some of those pictures. And hopefully, if if you can work it out, you'll have 2 extra magic hours in California Adventure. So you can do both of those, spend one time doing all the rides and another one maybe grabbing more pictures in between rides. Let's talk about something that you and I may disagree on just a little bit. Like we have the same general idea, but that is, what time should you arrive for your extra hour, whether it's Magic Morning or extra magic hour at the parks? And I know you and I, we both agree you should arrive early, but how early? That's what you and I disagree on a little bit here.
Well, anytime Becca and I go to the parks together, we're always texting the night before or talking wherever we might be. Okay, what time are we getting there? And I think we kind of always are like a half an hour off of each other, or maybe like 20 minutes. It's funny because we know each other's style, yet we still like push to the others' preferences. So I say for extra magic hour at California Adventure, 30 minutes. Disneyland, I would say 45 to an hour, just because you're mixing with other guests. So how off are we really, Becca? What do you say?
So I say you need to be in line 20 to 30 minutes before at Disneyland. And that's in line. So you need to be there about 45 minutes before to get, parked, to the park, through security, all that stuff. Because I'm not worried, me personally, I'm not worried about being the first person in line, but I do want to be towards the front of the line. You and I went together at the beginning of 2018 and we were trying to use a Magic Morning and we all got there right at the start of Magic Morning. I think I beat you guys by like 10 minutes and I was quite a ways up in the line, but because you guys were 10 minutes behind me, that can be the difference right there, 10 minutes. And I think you guys got there like 5 minutes before it officially started. And it made a huge difference in how long. So definitely whatever you do, don't show up right at the time that Magic Morning starts. But I personally prefer to arrive about 20, 30 minutes. But I tell my family, like, we're going to be there an hour before just to make sure I have that buffer. On the California Adventure side for extra magic hour, I honestly have differing opinions. I think you need to be there 20 minutes before if you're using the front gate. But if you're staying at the Grand California and you're using their exclusive entrance, I think you could get there about 15 minutes before and be okay, because it's only Grand California guests that are allowed in through that entrance. And so you'll have a little less line. Caveat though, Jessica, is the later that Magic Morning or extra magic hour starts, the earlier you need to be there.
Yes, totally. Because less people are sleeping in that late. So if the more painful it becomes to wake up to get extra magic hour or Magic Morning, the greater chances that you are going to have like a better experience, as long as your kids are happy about getting up that early. Because more people they won't be able to get up that early. Sometimes it starts at 7 a.m. That's actually, I would say, the majority of the time, because all summer long, and then any time that there are like school breaks or holidays and things like that, that Magic Morning is going to be at 7. And so that means you're parking around 6:15, or you're walking over at about 6:30 and trying to get there to get in right on time and start writing things.
So that brings me to the next question a lot of people ask. A lot of people go, what day should I use my Magic Morning? Of course, extra magic hour, that's every day. If you can, use it every day. Maybe pick one day to sleep in or whatever. But Magic Morning, since you only get it one day, how do you pick which day to utilize your Magic Morning? Now, I know what my answer is. My answer is always the day that it starts earliest, because of what we just discussed. But let's say they all start at the same time. To make it easy, let's just say they all start at 8 a.m. because that's what is actually going to happen to me on my next trip. It's off season, so it starts at 8 a.m. every single day. Which day would you suggest to people to go?
Okay, so it's less about the day of the week than it is about, like you said, what time they start, but then also use it closer to the beginning of your trip. So usually everyone's most excited and most ready to hit the ground running the first day that they're going to Disneyland. As you go on, you get more worn out, and it's just not as appealing to wake up that early in the morning. So don't worry as much as it's a Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday. Think about if it's beginning of your trip. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Saturdays, everybody has the day off and things like that. Saturdays are kind of a surprise. not only lately, but in the past couple of years. And that is because a lot of annual pass holders are blocked out on Saturdays. So on Saturdays, you often have the typical tourist crowd.
I agree. And the other thing to remember with Saturdays, and this is, we get a lot of people say, don't use it on Saturdays because even the locals are there and it gets really crowded. But as far as Magic Morning is concerned, most locals that are visiting the park are annual pass holders, which means they do not get Magic Morning access. I mean, they'll get extra Magic Hour if they're staying on site, but they don't get Magic Morning access. So that actually will not affect the Magic Morning crowds as much as a lot of people believe. And I totally agree. There are so many passes that are blocked out or they don't like to wake up early that I would not let locals scare you away from using your Magic Morning on a Saturday if that's what fits best with your plan. You brought up a really great point about how you get more tired as your trip progresses. Another tip about choosing when to utilize your Magic Morning, let's say you do want to use it later in your trip, is to make sure you're not trying to close out the park the day before you're going to use your Magic Morning, because how many of us are really going to wake up that early after we stayed up all night?
Yeah, if you're closing the park, you could be leaving the park at 1 a.m. I mean, the park, the latest it closes is at midnight, but you could still be in line for an attraction. You could be doing some shopping. You could be getting some night photos. By the time you get on the tram, the shuttle, whatever, it's going to add up quickly. And I don't know about you, but how many times have you been exhausted and you're closing the park and then you get to your hotel room and all of a sudden everybody's just chipper and wide awake? So it takes us a long time to fall asleep.
I agree. I believe that is what happened to us at the beginning of 2018 when we went, is we're like, we're going to come early tomorrow. And then, but we'd been out all night at Trader Sam's talking with people. And then we just couldn't get our butts up out of bed.
Definitely. And I love how, we're talking about that I like to get there earlier. And then you bring up the one time that I couldn't get myself there on time.
Oh, whoa, wait. It wasn't just one time. It was one time for Magic Morning. But let's not forget that when we went to the opening of Galaxy's Edge, you stayed on site. I stayed off site with Julie. You and Leslie stayed on site. And you guys had this grand plan that you were going to go down to downtown Disney and Disneyland, see what the lines were like at like 4 a.m. or something. Julie and I got to Disneyland at like 6:15 a.m. And I don't think you guys got there till 7 a.m. So it wasn't just one time.
I think I was still sleeping. Yeah. So maybe this is a habit, but I say it's all in the name of research because I can't tell our listeners and our members of Disneyland with Kids what time works and what time doesn't if I don't show up late sometimes.
That's true. You got to test the wrong way as well as the right way. So we've kind of started talking about it with what time to arrive. But let's talk about our strategy for using these extra hours, because you can get a lot done during your extra hour in either of these parks, or you can end up wasting it because you don't have a plan, you don't have a strategy. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're planning out their Disneyland vacation, is they don't think about how they're going to utilize this extra hour. Let's talk about Disneyland first, since that's the one that everybody has the opportunity to utilize as long as they have that 3-day or longer ticket. So what is your strategy when you go into Disneyland? Let's say we're already inside, we got there early. They let us in a few minutes before. There's like a mini rope drop for Magic Morning. What is the first thing that you do for Magic Morning, Jessica?
So there's definitely something of an ego booster for heading into Fantasyland and telling all your friends how many rides you went on during Magic Morning or even the entire day, because sometimes just the rides you get on then can beat some of your friends' total ride time. So I hit up Fantasyland and get on as many rides as possible that don't have fast passes. There are 2 attractions that have fast passes, which are Matterhorn and It's a Small World. So if I want to ride like Snow White and Pinocchio, Alice, Dumbo, Casey Jr., those are ones that I'm going to hit on, not necessarily in that order, but I'm going to hit those during Magic Morning, maybe the carousel as well. But definitely Dumbo and Alice are going to be 2 of my top picks. We'll throw in a little teacup spinning on the Mad Tea Party, but I did not mention Peter Pan's flight. And I think we agree on this, Becca. What are your thoughts on hitting Peter Pan during Magic Morning?
Unless you are one of the first very few people to get there. Just skip it because that line automatically, like it goes right up to 30 because everyone is using that hour and rushing towards Peter Pan. And I just feel like I feel this way with Radiator Springs Racers too. We'll get into that when we go to the California Adventure side, is that you can spend your whole hour waiting for one ride. Why not get all the other rides done and maybe come back to that ride when there is a shorter line, around parade times or fireworks? So I totally agree on that. I'm of the mindset to go to Alice first because it also can get quite long, not quite as long as Peter Pan, but it can get longer. And so I like to do Alice, then hit the teacups, then go do Dumbo, and then do the other small rides. So that's my strategy when we go. But there's also one other thing that I am doing during this hour while we're riding rides that sets us up for later in the day. And I bet you know what it is, Jessica, so I'll let you share about it.
Yeah, you can actually use Disney Max Pass during Magic Morning. And when I say use, I mean you can open up your app and you can schedule a Max Pass for when the park's actually open. You won't be getting a Max Pass and using it during Magic Morning. But if you're, say, in Fantasyland and you know you want to ride Space Mountain and you know that thing breaks down a lot and you know that thing gets long wait times, schedule your Max Pass right when the park opens, and your return time will probably be, say, 9 a.m. if Magic Morning was at 8 a.m. So you get all those Fantasyland rides done, and then you head over to Space Mountain.
Exactly. And that's actually a great strategy, and specifically with Space Mountain, because one year I made the mistake of doing Space Mountain during Magic Morning. And just like
Research.
Peter, yeah, research. I did the research of doing Space Mountain during Magic Morning, and it was the same as Peter Pan. A ton of people went to Space Mountain, and then our line ended up being like, we were in line for 25, 30 minutes. And by the time we got off of Space Mountain, our Magic Morning was basically over. So I think it's a great idea to grab that Fast Pass specifically during Magic Morning. Now, I have been on Main Street USA waiting for the mini rope drop for Magic Morning and been able to book a Max Pass for a ride before Magic Morning even opened. Because once you scan into the park, that's when, your Max Pass is activated if you already have it pre-purchased, or you can purchase it at that point, if you didn't pre-purchase. So definitely check as soon as you get into the park and see if those Max Passes are ready so that you can get the earliest return time possible. All right, so we've talked about our strategy for over on the Disneyland side, but let's talk about California Adventure because that is a whole different ballgame, Jessica. The rides are more spread out, but there's also less people. What is your game plan when you're heading in for that extra magic hour at California Adventure?
Well, we went straight for Pixar Pier because there are a few things that are open that are in close proximity to each other. And like you mentioned, they're so spread out. So you really just kind of have to pick your area unless you want to do a lot of quick running. So we hit Incredicoaster a few times. Then we went to Toy Story Midway Mania. We also rode Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind. And then we made our way over to Soarin'. Now, let me tell you what happened at Soarin'. This was really interesting because we made our way quickly there because the hour was about up and there was a line for Soarin'. And it was about 5 minutes before the park was scheduled to open. So we started to go in the line, but then I noticed some people going in the Fast Pass line. And I was like, what's going on? Well, it turned out if you had extra magic hour, you could go straight in. They had already started queuing the regular line before the park opened. Just another tip on getting there early. You might be able to even get in line, even if you don't have extra magic hour. So, another tip for using extra magic hour is make sure you're getting into the right line. So in that case, I almost got in the wrong line, but noticed other people going through. He asked me to show my room key and I was good to go. And then we were done with the attraction just as the park opened.
Yeah, I found that as well, that they will start queuing people, not for the whole park, but mostly for Soarin' and Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. I have found that they'll start queuing people there. I think just because of where those lands are laid out, they just let people start queuing for those rides. So I did a couple of extra magic hours in California Adventure around the same time, like within the same trip, because I wanted to test out what I thought was the right way and what I thought was the wrong way. Again, research, right?
Yes.
So I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is either picking those rides that are very far away from everything else. So Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout or Soarin', or I think, I hate saying this, but I really think heading straight to Radiator Springs Racers is a mistake during crowded season, at least, like a crowded time, because those lines can get long. Radiator Springs Racers can get really long. You're looking, my husband had a 35-minute wait at Radiator Springs Racers, and he walked really fast to get there and be towards the front, but still end up 35 minutes. That's most of your magic morning. So my personal strategy is Pixar Pier. We love that. It was really great, easy to hit up a lot of stuff. And then maybe crossing back over Paradise Garden, hit up Ariel, then go hit up the small rides at in Cars Land. And then at the very end, right before they let everyone else in, go hop in that Radiator Springs Racers ride so that you can do it with a shorter line. And then while you're in line, maybe grab a max pass for Guardians of the Galaxy or something, do that in the morning so you have a shorter line there as well.
Yeah, I really like your strategy as well. And that's kind of what we did with Pixar Pier. Another thing is Radiator Springs Racers is one that you want to ride multiple times. You want to ride it in the daylight and you want to ride it in the dark. So that's a good way to make that happen. Then you could even get your max pass for Radiator Springs later in the day and kind of watch it as the times show up and get it around, around sunset or a little bit later.
All right. So there is one scenario we hear a lot about in Disneyland with Kids in the Facebook group that I do want to touch on that people ask a lot of times is about the Plaza Inn and Magic Morning, because a lot of our guests, they know my personal love for the Plaza Inn character breakfast with Minnie and friends. And so they book it and they're like, oh, I got this really early time. It's before the general park open. Is it going to use my Magic Morning entry? Jessica, are they going to lose that Magic Morning entry because they booked a character meal during that time?
Well, there is a special entrance for character dining. So whether you have a Magic Morning or whether you don't at all, maybe this is your one day at Disneyland, you're going to utilize that character dining entrance. It's usually to the far left of the gates at Disneyland Park. And you'll be let into Plaza Inn, but you won't be able to go past that area. So don't try to book Plaza Inn thinking that you're going to sneak into the rides. You're going to really love Plaza Inn though, so you're going to spend your time there.
Yeah, and you'll still have your Magic Morning to use another day if you have not already utilized it, because it does not scan that Magic Morning off of your ticket. But here's a little hack. If you do book the Plaza Inn in the morning during Magic Morning, you can still make Max Pass reservations from Plaza Inn during that time frame. So that's a little tip for you guys there. All right, Jessica. So let's end with a Disneyland Would You Rather. And these are all submitted by members of our Disneyland with Kids Facebook group. If you are not a member of that group, make sure to go ahead and join. We have a lot of great members and we help you plan your Disneyland vacations. This one is submitted by Ashley M. And she asks, would you rather get to the park early, such as a Magic Morning or Extra Magic Hour, or stay late? Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the early morning hours at the park or the late hours at the park?
I am such a morning person, so I always have to say morning because I can't even stay up that late. And also because the crowd level in the morning, I think, is still lower than it is at night. Even when the park closes at midnight, you'll get a lot more people filtering out after fireworks, but still a lot of people hang out.
Exactly. So I am totally split on this because I love the early morning, the energy, the getting the tons of rides done. But I love Main Street at night. Like after the fireworks, I just love sitting there. They play the up music because I don't know if you knew this, but in the morning they play more energetic music on Main Street to help push you down the street. But at the night, they play more relaxed music to slow you down, to help you want to shop. But I love that music at night and just the feeling of it, and being able to look up to Walt's apartment, actually really see that the light is on. There's just something special about that. But since I have kids, I'm normally a morning person. All right, guys, let us know if you prefer the morning hours or the evening hours, and let us know if you have utilized either Magic Morning or Extra Magic Hour. And be sure to hit subscribe so that you do not miss a single episode. And we'll see you real soon.